You are listening to Viewpoints from PlaceCloud. Cultural researchers tell stories of places from around the world. For the full multimedia experience and to support the creators you enjoy, visit placecloud.io.
St. Augustine's Tower is the oldest building in Hackney and a familiar landmark in the local area, though it may be an unusual sight for those that are unfamiliar with it, as it consists of a singular lone tower and is found just outside Hackney Central Station. Unlike the rest of the original parish church, which was demolished in 1798, the tower survived, and it still stands to the present day in the centre of what was once the medieval village of Hackney. It is a Grade 1 listed building and even appears on the borough's coat of arms. The tower is all the remains of a building which was built at the end of the 13th century, when Hackney was a village and was separated from the City of London by fields. After the military order, the Knights Templar, who were important landowners in Hackney, were suppressed in 1308. The estates were passed on to the Knights of St. John, who would then name the church St-John-at-Hackney in dedication to St. John of Jerusalem, also known as St. John the Baptist. Their order was subsequently dissolved during the Reformation, and the estate passed on to other owners. During the Tudor times, certain members of the court used the church, including Thomas Cromwell and Ralph Sadleir, who, interestingly enough, is also connected to one of our other graffiti viewpoints, that of Sutton House. During the 16th and 17th centuries, the church was extended, and the congregation then grew considerably in the 17th and 18th centuries, as the population of Hackney increased, and the village later became subsumed into London's metropolis, with the church becoming crowded. A further addition of a gallery was added in the mid-17th century, and smaller additions were added in the 18th century to increase seating capacity. By 1789, the church could seat 1,000 people. However, in spite of these additions, the church was still deemed insufficient for the size of the growing congregation. Due to this, a new Church of St-John-at-Hackney was designed by James Spiller, a friend of the renowned English architect Sir John Soane, between 1791 and 1797, with a steeple then added in 1814. However, as the new steeple was unable to hold the weight of the original church bells, these were kept in the old church for 4 decades and were only moved in 1854, when the new church tower was underpinned in order to hold their weight. The rest of the original church was demolished in 1798 and the material sold off, but the tower was fortunately kept in order to house the bells. It has also been reported that the contractor hired to demolish the tower after the bells were removed found it to be too difficult of a job to take down the sturdy old tower. According to the Hackney Historic Buildings Trust, happily, no one pressed him to fulfil his contract. And this is another reason why St. Augustine's Tower still remains in place to this day. It was also felt that the new fashion for the Gothic style at the time also appealed to local inhabitants, who then wanted to keep the tower to remind everyone of the history of the area. In 1929, Hackney Council bought the tower from the church to save it from demolition, and maintenance work was carried out over the 20th century, including repairs to the battlements and some of the stone facings in 1933, and a renovation of the tower in 1983. Since 1990, Hackney Historic Buildings Trust has been responsible for St. Augustine's Tower and have undertaken a number of improvements to the building, including lighting, glazing, repairs to the stonework, and adding flat level access to the ground floor. Visitors to the tower can climb up the narrow spiral staircase to the top, with a chance to see the clock room with an intact 16th and 17th century mechanism, see carved graffiti on the way, and then be treated to views across the City of London from the top. Historic graffiti can be found across the tower and includes names and initials of those that visited the tower in the past, with their marks carefully carved into the stone. These marks include the names and dates of those that completed work in the tower, such as J. Wood Plummer from 5th of January 1869, and even illustrations of houses and roofs. It is interesting to think that, without the need to keep the tower in order to house the bells before they were moved to the new church, St. Augustine's tower could have been demolished with the rest of the old church, and the historic graffiti wouldn't then be here either. St. Augustine's tower is usually open on the last Sunday of every month to the public, and artists have used the building for exhibitions. This has included the work of Peter Burke entitled The Fields Beneath, a mixed media work which incorporated digital prints of the historic etchings and graffiti from the tower, and this was displayed in the tower in an exhibition in the spring of 2019. Through this, the historic markings and contemporary art were combined together.